Today I want to ask and answer what I think is a really fundamental question. What is an advisor's role? And if you watch this video to the end, what I'm going to do is take you on a journey of clarification. And it's one that I've spent decades asking and obsessing about. As you would know, if you watch any of my stuff, I like to get to the fundamentals behind things. I don't like to just take what's been said before, what's taken for granted. I like to get deeper into an issue, and I think advice is the one thing that I am obsessed about. Now, the thing about being an advisor is that, first of all, people put these terms around it which limits the focus. So it doesn't matter what denomination you are, if you're an accountant or a lawyer or a financial advisor or a coach or broker or any of those things, if you give people advice on something, anything that has a major impact on their life, then that is an advisor. But there's a difference between someone who's just going about giving advice and someone that is actually an advisor in their core and at their DNA. And I've had the pleasure of working with and getting to know thousands of people that I would call an advisor in their DNA. Someone who is, it's just part of who they are. They can't help but want to enable, empower, get other people to see things differently, to make decisions, to have a better life. And that's going to lead us on to what we've been indoctrinated into as being our value as an advisor or a professional, what the limiting thoughts are for your denomination. So let's think about accountants to begin with. So if you're an accountant, you start out, you go to university, and you're taught that accuracy and doing the steps in the process is your measure of how valuable you are. So you go and you do that and you get your grades, and it's kind of almost a right or a wrong. So the books balance or they don't. And then you work your way up and you're a junior and you become an associate and maybe a manager, and then moving up into a partner role and maybe managing principal, and you still subconsciously, the value you provide and your role is to deliver these processes and outcomes to clients. And it doesn't matter, as I said before, which denomination you are. What is it behind that though? What's the thing that all advisors do? What's the principle behind real advice? And I'm going to be a little bit counterintuitive here, and I want to break this down for you. And if you're watching this, and if you are an advisor in your DNA, then you already instinctively know this. You already intuitively have this built into you. But there's a difference between knowing intuitively and quantifying it explicitly so that your conscious and subconscious can line up and allow you to make better decisions about your future as an advisor. Because the thing about it is, you can be a technician. You can know the most complicated, the best strategies, have a real grasp about, nuances between tax law and structuring and all of those kind of things. And that's great, but that's being a technician. So you can be an awesome technician. That doesn't make you a real advisor. So in order to know what does make you a real advisor, it's absolutely imperative that we quantify what that is. What is advice? And because we brought through these denominations and taught that our value is in our technical ability and the outcomes, the steps, the process, the product that we deliver, it leads us to kind of subconsciously ignore this principle. So the first thing that I want to say to you is, and this is going to sound really contradictory, an advisor's role is not actually to give advice. Just the word advisor gives you the perspective that your job and what you're valued for is the advice that you give. And as anyone who would hang out with me for any period of time would know, I always say this: if you ask the wrong question, you always get the wrong answer. Even if it's a great question, if you ask it at the wrong time, you still get the wrong answer. So what we're doing here is trying to go back and figure out what's the right question to ask. And that's what I'm doing today. What is an advisor's role? It's not actually to give advice. Giving advice isn't the thing that actually has the impact on the client. Because you can give advice all day long, but whether a client takes it, whether it actually has an impact on their life, whether it makes their life better, is not dependent on the fact that you gave advice. And because we're brought through, this school of thinking, even using the terminology that we have, it changes the perspective in our subconscious and in our brains. So being an advisor, well, therefore my value is the quality of advice that I give. And if I don't know something, well, that diminishes my self-worth because I'm supposed to know things as an advisor. And my value is in the quality of the advice that I give. And that's why I see so many professionals doubling down on trying to be more technical or more complicated, and they don't actually focus on developing their skills on the fundamental thing that actually is what advice does. So here's the bit. I'm going to start narrowing this down for you. You see, it's not about giving answers. Advice is actually about asking questions. Asking the right questions, figuring out what are fundamentally the right questions. And that leads me to another discovery. Over more than 30,000 client meetings across so many different aspects of professional services that it's hard to even explain. That's been my life, my obsession. What have I come to realize? That everyone you speak to, every client that you sit in front of already knows their own answers. The problem is they're locked up. They're locked up inside in terms of conflict and overthinking and anxiety and fear and second guessing and living to other people's expectations. All of this is actually what limits people from the answers that are the most important. Which product to use or which investment platform or what legal structure, they're not really the answers that are the fundamentals of advice. So what is an advisor's role? An advisor's role, I think, boils down to this, and it's so simple. And yet, how much do we have to actually go through to get this answer? A real advisor's role is just to ask the questions, help your clients to find their own answers, and to help them have a better life. That's my definition of advice. That is what real advice is. Help your clients to find their own answers and to have a better life. And where the mastery of advice is in learning to forget that what you've been taught as the real aspects of the value, looking for ways to actually focus on having an impact on your clients' lives. So you can still be a great technician and professional. And if you're practicing in those areas, then it's a given that you put energy and effort and professionalism to nailing those things down. But what's even more important is that if you want to be a real advisor, if you want to develop that thing that's in your heart, that's in your DNA, then you have to actually work on yourself. You have to figure out what are your own obstacles that are holding you back. What are your own answers before you can be delivering that to your clients? You have to develop your ability to ask questions, to set aside your own preconceptions. Now, if you can do that as an advisor, you can change someone's life in a minute. It doesn't take more work. It doesn't take necessarily more time when you're with a client, but understand that the actions you take, whether it's creating a new legal structure, as I said before, completing tax returns and compliance documents, giving business advice, whatever it is, that's just a symptom. The real issue is the thing behind the scenes. And if you're not asking your clients the hard questions, if you're not going deep enough, and if you don't understand that's actually where the value is, then you're focusing on the wrong things. And if you don't know how to articulate the value in that, how can you get your clients to understand the value for themselves? How can you understand how to get them to take the biggest action and have the most life impact? So that's it. And I'm going to sum this video up by saying an advisor's role isn't to give answers. It's to help your clients find their answers so that they can have a better life. And if you focus on that as the value always, you will be a much better advisor. Thanks very much. Love to know your thoughts. Cheers.